Hey guys, welcome back to a new knife review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the CRKT Squid in G10. Now this is a small compact knife that kind of geared more towards EDC, just everyday little duty kind of stuff. Design is based on one of Lucas Burnley's customs. Now, manufactured by CRKT, of course. It's one thing that CRKT does really well is they take a lot of designs from custom makers and make kind of their own little budget-friendly production models. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get in on the technical specs. All right, guys, so getting into the technical specs that I care about, we are looking at a blade length of 2¼ inches. It's 0.11 inches thick, or just about or under 3 millimeters. 8CR13 MOV blade steel. It's a spear point hollow ground blade, black stonewash finish, and weight on this guy is 2.55 ounces. And it is a stainless steel frame lock. And pocket clip configuration is right hand tip up only. So now that we got specs out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the blade. All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at the blade here. Nice little 2¼ inch blade. Be really good for kind of your general duty, everyday type of cutting. The whole theme of this knife revolves around just your basic light duty cutting. As far as the blade goes, this is kind of where I'm a little nitpicky on the knife. As you can see, the blade looks a little bit smaller than the handle, and it's really not a big deal, but to me it just looks a little weird. Ratio looks just a tiny bit off to me. I don't know if it's because the handle is wider and longer than the blade, so much so that it just, to me, it looks off. That's mainly just my personal preference. In reality, it doesn't do anything to impact the knife functionally. The one thing that I think does impact this knife functionally is the tip is, as you can see, it looks like it gets to a pretty fine point here, but upon further inspection, it doesn't really come to a really good point here. And that could partially be due, honestly, to how this blade is sharpened. I'm trying to get a clear shot of it for you guys. But it does, the spine does kind of come down and curve in towards it, so you don't really get a really defined point. With a little bit of sharpening, like I said, that could probably be worked out a little bit, but just the way the blade is designed, it's not meant to be kind of like a piercing type of blade. And it's not a huge deal. I don't think it was designed to fit that role anyways, but I thought I would point it out either way. As far as the literal finish of the blade, I like it. I typically do kind of like the black stonewash or acid stonewash type blades. For those of you that don't know, typically if they specify acid stonewash versus black stonewash, and this is just a general kind of blanket statement here, black stonewash typically means it's a black coating that's been tumbled to give you the stonewash finish over the black coating. The acid stonewash was it being dipped in some kind of ferric chloride or whatever they use to etch the blade and then tumble it. Ultimately, it looks pretty similar, but they are two technically different finishes. Other than that, you kind of got the standard blade thickness here. Pretty average stuff here. The blade is slightly hollow ground. In terms of slicing and cutting, I'd say it performs pretty average. You're not really going to expect too much out of this price range either way. The jimping is, technically it's there, but I don't think it really adds a whole lot of grip to the knife. At least it's there though. It can't detract from the grip at all. And final thing I do want to point out is the thumb studs. I am a huge fan of the thumb studs here. They're pretty big and they're pretty wide. So when you put your thumb on it to deploy the blade, it's pretty comfortable. You don't get any pointy thumb stud type issues. So I do like that. And one last thing, you get the little kind of sharpening notch or sharpening choil here. So your edge is going to run all the way back to the plunge here. So I do appreciate that as well. With all that stuff kind of taken out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the handle. All right, guys, so the handle scores a little bit more points with me here. This kind of is what makes up for my personal nitpickiness on the blade. Once you actually have the blade in hand, if you stick your index finger right in that choil there, that first divot, and then lay the rest of your hand on the knife, you pretty well get a good idea of where your hand is supposed to be. So you get a good natural grip on the knife despite how small it is. It's not full grip, which you probably would expect, but it's it's 3.5 fingers, so you still feel like you get a good positive grip on the knife. The G10 is really nice. I really like the way the G10 looks over the base model that's all stainless. It also does cut a considerable amount of weight off from 3.5 ounces to 2.55. So you're getting almost an entire ounce shaved off the weight just by swapping to G10. So aside from the weight, I personally like the way that it looks better. All blacked out hardware. The body screws here that attach to the backspacer and lock side of the knife, they just tap directly into the stainless steel here. I don't mind that. I think probably the screws will get jacked up before the handle side, but either way, I'm not worried about steel on steel. As far as the backspacer goes, it's aluminum. You can get some full paracord through there, barely, but you can still get it through there for those of you that like to do lanyards. Stainless steel frame lock. My lock is pretty far over, but I don't really mind. The fact that it's stainless steel, it's not going to wear over too quickly, so it doesn't bother me. Solid lockup though, no play in any direction. On this particular G10 model, I think all of them do. The stainless side is also got that black stonewash finish on it, so kind of matches the whole kind of dark color scheme of the knife. Pocket clip is pretty nice. I do have one small gripe on it. The lip comes up pretty far, so I myself have gotten that hooked onto whatever kind of seat belt. I've had to bend the clip back a couple times, and at least this part is my experience. The screws on my pocket clip, they're held in with a pretty considerable amount of Loctite, so I actually busted one of my T6 bits trying to unscrew one of these. So again, that's just my experience. I know not all knives, that come out of a specific factory are going to have the same exact amount of Loctite, but just keep that in mind, really just in general when disassembling knives or taking off pocket clips. Yeah, other than that, you get even though the screws aren't countersunk, you have more than enough room to have your pocket material go all the way down. So easy to get in and out of your pocket, just beware of that lip. Other than that, I would say that about covers it. Next thing we're going to go over is the action and fit and finish. All right, guys, so looking at the action and the fit and finish of this knife, there are some misses here. Nothing too crazy. It does get the fundamental things right. Like I mentioned before, there's no blade play in either direction, so side to side or up and down. So that checks that one box for me. One of my pet peeves is the blade play. Easily the next pet peeve is blade centering. And you can see this blade is fully centered. And I didn't have to adjust it out of the box. It came like that. So I really do love that. Not a huge deal if it's, off center. It's easy enough to fix it if it's an assembly type issue. But fact that it came out of the box like that, I didn't have to adjust it, and it's not, too tight or loose or anything. I like that. Kind of surprising from something in this price category. Speaking of, $22.95 for the G10 model, as opposed to, I believe, $19.95 for the stainless steel model. Either way, it's super cheap. So I didn't have any huge expectations with this knife. I mainly got it just for the size, the thinness. It was light, deep carry pocket clip. This thing is pretty easy to carry. So either way, those two things are the good. The couple small misses. You can see some machining marks on the aluminum backspacer here. Not a huge deal, but it's there. Other thing that I did notice is if you look closely, you get a little bit of space in between the steel side and the aluminum backspacer. Again, probably, not a huge deal, doesn't affect the functionality of the knife at all. And at $22.95, I can't really knock it too much, but again, worth pointing out. Other than those two things, as far as handles go, everything is pretty spot on. On this particular blade, you can kind of see that little snail trail there in the light. That was there when it came out of the box, and there's another small one on this side, right there. You can see kind of towards the front. Not a big deal. It's not noticeable unless you catch it in the light like that. And on this type of finished blade, it's really not a big deal. As you can see, just from the the G10 being a little beat up, I've put some fair amount of mileage on this thing, and even if the blade finish did get beat up, I really couldn't care less. This thing is running on like those Teflon washers. It's pretty smooth out of the box. It's just not going to get any more smooth. It's not like the phosphor bronze bushings that over time they wear in and they break in with the knife, and you end up getting a pretty buttery smooth action. This is just going to stay like this. It might get a little bit worse if if those washers start to degrade a little bit, or they get dirty, gritty. You have to make sure you keep it clean, just like any other knife. You can flick it open pretty easily. Blade closes just fine. Detent on it is pretty positive. It's got a really good retention on it. You don't really need that on a thumb stud knife, but that's one thing that I prefer in a knife is a medium to stout detent. So I do like that. That about covers it. Like I said, there's not a bunch of crazy stuff going on here. It's really simple. It's average. It performs up to the price point, and yeah, as advertised, I guess you could say. Now after this, we're going to go over closing statements, miscellaneous comments, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, guys, miscellaneous statements, my overall thoughts. I think the knife is a really great value for what it is. It's $22.95, like I said. I think if you got just extra $22.95 or $23-25, just laying around, just burning a hole in your pocket, I'd say definitely pick it up. So I did have the stainless steel model before the G10. I actually gave it away as a gift, and then picked up the G10 model. I would definitely suggest picking up the G10, even though it's not much of a price difference. Absolutely worth the $2 or $3 it is to, bump up and get the lighter, more aesthetically pleasing to me knife. It's much lighter. It carries a lot better, and it just feels less clunky. Yeah, I'd say, all things considered, I would rate this maybe, 7 out of 10 overall. Like I said, performs as expected. There's nothing stand out about the knife, but it does fill that role of your lightweight small EDC. It's perfect for in the office or like a corporate or retail setting. The blade is really non-threatening, so even if they do notice you're cutting a letter or cutting up a box or getting into something, nobody's going to say anything. It's just a small little knife that doesn't have a really tactical look, even in this all, black and dark configuration. So that's actually where I used this knife the most, was in a retail position. So yeah, I think it fills that role very well. You're going to be very pleased if you decide to pull the trigger on this. Just don't expect anything great. It is good for what it is, though. Um, all that aside, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you like the videos, and to stay up to date with the channel. Like my video if you would. It helps me out a lot. And yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.